Good morning, everybody. We are back. It is the right side of campus. We are live here on a Tuesday, September 11th, 2018. I'm your host, the big man on campus here, getting you ready for another week of football. Week 3, college, week 2, NFL. We'll finish up and put a bow in week 1 in the NFL and more. Welcome in, Donnie Rightside.
You'd have been proud of me. Jeff stayed up late last night to watch the finish of the second game with the Oakland Raiders and the Los Angeles Rams. No surprise in the second half as Chucky's team fell apart against a superior opponent, but a lot to go over, Jeff. Seems like every day now, chock full of information, too many topics to cover. Nice to have football season back in our life.
I agree. Welcome into all the people out there listening. As always, do us a favor, hit the like button, say hello on the chat, and make your voice heard. Also, if you're on Twitter, please go ahead and retweet the show. It's a great way to get it out to people on a regular basis that might not see it. It grows the channel as well. So make sure you're doing that whenever you can. Also, check out Beat the Prick. Beat the Prick at sbrcontest.com. It's a free contest with your chance to win up to a nice prize as far as that's concerned, $50,000 in prizes. You pick 5 games a week, college or pro, side or totals, and basically all you have to do is beat the prick. So over the long course of the season, make sure you check that out, sbrcontest.com. I am in it, and other people are in it as well. So make sure you check out sbrcontest.com for Beat the Prick today. Donnie, before we get into the show, obviously, September 11th is always a poignant day in many Americans' lives. I remember where I was 17 years ago today. I believe it was a Tuesday. You're a bit older than me, but I remember I was in seventh grade at the time. And I remember hearing about this. We went home early from school actually because of this. And I don't think any of us knew because at my school, Donnie, they wouldn't put it on TV. It was not something that they put on TV. So no one really knew what was going on. We just knew we were going home. And I remember going home. I remember my mother had it on TV, and I remember my mother was crying. I didn't know what it was. I didn't understand it. And then as you kind of saw it, you understood what it was. But it was the first real time, Donnie, that we really hadn't had terrorism until then. I mean, I don't think anyone really knew a ton about what it was, and since then our lives have changed considerably. I mean, everything you do now is a lot different than it used to be. But Donnie, I know you remember that fateful, sad, horrible day.
Yeah, as Biggie Smalls once said, Jack, because we weren't really used to it, but it was there in the past. Biggie would rap about blow up like the World Trade. So they did try to bomb the World Trade Centers earlier. And then you had the, I want to say, American inland terrorism in Oklahoma City. So there were aspects of it, but we weren't really life-changing events because now every time you go to an airport now, it used to be a lot easier to get through security checks. And now you see the ramping up after 2001, but a very somber event. A lot of heroes also, Jeff, on that day that we don't want to forget about. The one flight that crashed in Swanksville where they took the flight down, risking their own lives. They all died on that plane, but to save a lot of people in the meantime. So there were a lot of heroes. And, as crazy as it sounds, some good to come out of it because it woke us up and it said, you know what? This is a different world. It's not the 1950s anymore. You have to go about a different way. But a lot of heroes and a lot of departments there in New York City. And, some would say, Jeff, it would make the country stronger. We were able to come together. I was in the mortgage business at the time, Jeff, and I worked a later shift, so I missed everything. I remember waking up that morning to check like fantasy football and going online, which back in the day, 2001 was like AOL, some slow dial-up style internet. And I saw the highlights on like, the AOL page or whatever it was. And it was one of those things that looked like it was fake. Like it was almost like one of those things like, what if this happened? And then I turned on the TV and was just astonished, man.
Yeah, yeah, something we had never seen before. But a lot of heroes. We remember them today, and you know, it's always a sad day. September
Sure.
11th, always an eerie day for whatever for that reason. Let's get into the show here. We start out with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers' status for his next game against the Vikings still up in the air, Donnie. Mike McCarthy not saying much. They're not saying much. What do we have going on here?
Yeah, I don't. This is the interesting thing about the NFL to me, which is always the double standard out there. You have double-sided speak on every type of player injury that you have. It's not so much that Aaron Rodgers got injured. He got injured on a fluke play. That's something that's going to happen to anybody. Get your leg caught, in a certain way in football. It's going to give, and you're going to get injured. but the guy makes more money than anybody in football. He's more important to your franchise than anything out there. And we're always safe to guard. And you see it all the time, like, oh, the helmet injuries, we want to avoid this and that, and we want the players to be safe. Your franchise quarterback goes down with a knee injury, you cart him off. Some, I don't know, Mr. Miyagi in the locker room rubs his hand on the knee and figures that it's okay. And now he plays the rest of the game. The Packers win. Everybody's happy. Then they get a full medical evaluation. And now they're saying, like, ooh, I don't know if he's even healthy enough to play the next week. Are they crackpot doctors in the locker room? Or is it just Aaron Rodgers owns the franchise and says, don't really care what any one of you doctors say. I will play this weekend, or I will play this second half and be damned. And if I get injured further, it's all on you guys, but I'm going to go out there and play. Am I missing something here in the NFL where on one hand, we want to be so safe, but then you see it all the time where somebody has concussion, we always point to like Russell Wilson in Seattle, gets checked for concussion. They try to put the tent down. He pushes the tent away and runs right back in there and nobody cares. Then after the game, the NFL makes something up and says, oh, well, we'll check into the situation. Nobody cares about players' health. The players don't even care about their own health. Enough with it. Tired of that.
Rodgers and the team doctors assured him that he could not do any more damage to the knee by coming back into the game. The quarterback acknowledged the stiffness and tightness increased as the game went on. I got a feeling something bad's going to happen here with Rodgers. I got a feeling we're not going to see him for a while. If you're a Packer fan,
and also it's a great week. It's a great week to put him back out there too against what maybe Minnesota's coming to town. So real good week if he's hobbled or a knee is unstable. But it just gets back to the original point, Jeff. The players, the coaches, the owners, nobody cares when the game is on the line about safety to players, long-term investment. It's about what you're doing that day on the field. Can you try to win? And we'll let the chips fall where they go. So double talk in the NFL doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah, without Aaron Rodgers, they're lost without a paddle
correct.
for sure. New coaches in the NFL go 0-7. How about that? I didn't even hear about that. I didn't even notice that until that was just pointed out. Yeah, some of the new coaches were horrendous. I mean, we'll talk about a couple of them when we break down the NFL last night. But yeah, I mean, listen, it was a tough week for new boys here in the NFL, Donnie.
Yeah, hey, look, change is always good, right? Well, change might not always be good, especially in the NFL, because not a lot of these people actually deserve to be head football coaches, but they are coaches, and some, Jeff, are making $10 million a year to put up 13 points in their home debut on Monday Night Football. So 0-7, but you can't feel bad, Jeff, for NFL coaches. Why? It's guaranteed money. Hey, you get fired, you got 3 years left on your deal, you bank 15 million, you go be an assistant coach somewhere. It's not a bad life.
Not at all. Phillies were postponed last night, but it didn't rain, which is weird because I feel like it rained everywhere in the East Coast, but no, no rain. It was just very muddy. They couldn't get the field taken care of. They were trying to blow torch around home plate and all sorts of different areas on the field. Players spoke up and said it wasn't safe. Um, an absolute mess by the Phillies groundskeeping crew.
Yeah, and I like how they tried to cover it up on the telecast because the Phillies have probably the most homerish home telecasters that there are in baseball. That no matter what happens on the field, it's not the player's fault. If a bad pitch is thrown, it's the umpire was squeezing him the pitch before, and what a great at bat. Or if a Phillies player strikes out on 3 pitches, he was told to attack the plate, so it's not his fault that he actually struck out in the big moment there. But now we talk about the grounds crew, Jeff. We live in the Northeast. Everybody saw the weather. It rained and rained and rained and rained and rained. And it's okay to say, you know what? I was the head groundskeeper on Friday night or Saturday, whenever it was. And I got drunk at a Center City bar, met up with a lady, lost track of time, didn't send the text out to my crew to put the tarp down on the field, and just left it untarped probably for 16 hours of 5 inches of rain. Oh boy, we got a game coming to town, and we have to postpone it at the last minute because I forgot. So you know what the Phillies spin, Jeff, on the telecast was? There's a strategy that they stick to because you want to get some rain on the field, but not too much. And it was a scheduled day where they didn't actually put the tarp on the field. That was done on purpose. Bullshit. That was done on purpose. One of the stupidest cover-ups I've ever seen. Just admit your head groundskeeper probably got drunk somewhere and forgot to cover the field. No big deal. You postpone the game. You have a doubleheader. Admit your mistake and move on. Don't make up and say it was a scheduled non-tarping event to miss 5 inches of rain. My goodness.
Even the groundskeepers giving up on the season,
Yes.
amazingly enough. Phillies are now 5 games back at the Atlanta Braves, not looking good. Yeah, I mean, no one's really seems to be interested in the season anymore, Donnie.
No.
Even the groundskeepers. ESPN Monday Night Football telecast. Where are you going with this, Donnie?
Yeah, I mean it's the opening weekend. You know, you have a double header, you have all those eyes on the board, and we get some C telecast in that. I mean, you got a C game basically with the Jets and the Detroit Lions, as it turned out. You got the C broadcasting crew, and then we're seeing like even into the second game at halftime, Jeff, boys to men. I don't know. I really didn't know what ESPN's mo last night was trying to head after. You had a headline game, but it was late as hell at 10 o'clock, not the early game, and you had a bad crew call the game in the first game, which was a bad game to begin with. So it looked like one of those 12 o'clock, 1996 Purdue Northwestern type of telecasts, and then you just flooded halftime with boys to men repeatedly. Hey, look, boys to men's from Philadelphia, always gonna have respect for them, but I remember being in high school when they came out in grade school, 1992 through like 1996. Kind of interesting move by ESPN.
Yeah, I watched the first game for about, I don't know, 10 minutes maybe. I mean, it, it was just a brutal game. Just ugly. As far as the telecast, yeah, I mean, I'm not a big Beth Mallins fan, never have been. And I know most fuck boys will bring up the fact, oh, big men doesn't like women. No, it's not because she's a woman. I don't like her voice, frankly. I thought, who was the other guy? Brian Greasy, I think.
Greasy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of his either. As far as the halftime show, I don't even think I saw it. The second game, yeah, I was doing stuff. I tell you what, I watched like the last quarter and I was pretty irritated. I mean, Donnie, let me explain this to you. Okay, so Monday
Yeah.
Night Football. Listen, I'm going into the final game in fantasy. I'm up. I think I was up. I don't know,
You
11
say you're up
points or
12 or
10.
something? Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
have the guy I'm playing has the Rams defense. Okay, so I mean, all I got to do is avoid like a few pick sixes. What do you think that fuck boy Derek Carr does with 2 minutes to go?
Oh, I
Throws a
saw
fuck.
it, man. I saw it. Throw it late in the
I'm
flat, you get it picked. And how about the worst one was the interception with about what 7 or 8 minutes to go in the fourth
no, it
quarter,
was
where he just like almost looked like the mob is after me. I owe him a lot of money. Here's your interception, so we don't score. That's what it looked like.
it was the worst. It was the one of the worst throws I've ever seen. I mean, it was way worse than the Darnold first throw. I mean, it was. I actually thought right away. I'm thought like, dude, that looks totally fixed. Like, what was that throw? Like, what who was that going to? There was no one even in the area. I mean, I think everyone was mystified by that throw, but that was ugly. Gotti, what do you do to change the telecast though? Because if you remember last year, they had the same problems. They had that remember that one guy that was doing the thing, the weird sideline guy? I mean,
Oh yeah, the weird. Yeah, somebody's having the time of their life on the sideline. Yeah, I don't know what ESPN. Sometimes I just don't understand. Like, I think they just put people out there. You want veterans. Now look, Beth Moen has done a lot of games, primarily basketball and early like college football stuff. I get it, but in a prime time spot where everybody the spotlight's on it, because there's more interest in opening week probably outside of the playoffs and the Super Bowl because everybody is interested in their own team. Like even Detroit Lions fans were excited before that football game. Now maybe not after the football game they were excited, but usually you want to put your best foot forward and have a lot of fun. And I know you said you didn't see the halftime shows. If it was, usually you have like a halftime show on the field. You ever see like Thanksgiving or obviously the Super Bowl where sometimes they sneak them in like the playoff games where you have like an on-field performance at the halftime with a relevant person. Jeff, they went to like a studio on like tape delay in black and white and showed like boys to men singing. That was the halftime show as opposed to breaking down the games. It was really interesting.
yeah, I've seen those before. They did that for the Eagles game too. It's just like some random singer. He's like down like by Penn's Landing. Just what do they do? One song and just leave? I don't get that. Like I saw this thing recently die with this rapper Post Malone. He like goes like this. I don't know. It's like you ever Donnie? You remember back in the day? I don't know if they do them anymore, but on DirecTV they have like these. They have these like channels where like they just play like little like mini concerts. Like they go to like some random like hall and like film stuff. You remember those
Yeah, yeah,
channels like Audience Network, those kind of places? Like these, they
yeah.
like go to these like
Spotify. Yeah, yep, yeah.
yeah, like yeah, right. And Ski TV had like this thing where like Post Malone goes to this like hall and like does one song and then leaves. It's just like I mean, Is that what he's supposed to do? Like I don't understand like why they do that. And I don't know. Like last night was like someone say, okay, Boys Men's gonna perform. We'll pay you to go watch this. Just stay for the song and then leave. Because no one would like. I don't feel like anyone would do that like willingly. Maybe, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, Beth Mounds is annoying. Like this is Donnie. This is Beth Mounds during a game. Uh, Rudock back to pass. He's looking for Smith. Smith is down at the 35. Like it's like, dude, you are really annoying with that voice. Yeah, Mounds is no good. I'm not a Tessitore guy either. Later, Tessitore, he's kind of
No, I mean, he's a professional. I don't mind him too much, but it's like, don't you get like a stigma? You know how guys play like a role and you can never ever envision them sometimes outside of the role. Tony Soprano as James Gandolfini. Every time you saw Gandolfini, and he's a great actor all the way around, was in a lot of movies, but every time you saw him, you got astonished that his voice wasn't the same voice as it was in The Sopranos. So sometimes you just get stuck with stuff like that, you know?
yeah. No, you're totally right. Let's get into the recap last night. Look, there's not a ton to recap, really. I mean, Darnold comes out, throws a pick six in his first play, and then rebounds and dominates the Lions. Look, the Lions are atrocious. I mean, they were horrendous. Everything about them was ugly. I don't know. I I don't know what that offense was. I don't know what Patricia's doing. Patricia looks like he's sorely under
And put on weight again and
yeah, he
like
looks
Jeff, there's something
looks a
about like
mess.
a motive. Like you are the CEO basically of the franchise, right? Everybody looks to you in times of good and bad to rally the troops and do everything. And I'm sorry, like it shouldn't come down to this, but if I have the pencil in my ear, I haven't shaved in 6 weeks, my hat is on backwards, and I'm dressed like a bum on the sidelines, and my team is getting routed at home. And when I turn around, holy shit, Brady's not behind me. Holy shit, Belichick's not here. What am I gonna do? I mean, dude, clean up your image and get to work, man. Come on.
Yeah, that was a weird hire. I never really understood that because he seems like one of those guys that's notorious for like I don't care about offense, it's just defense for me. It doesn't seem like a big time leader either. I don't know, something weird about him. I don't really know how he's qualified to be a head coach in the NFL either. I mean, I don't know. I mean, he seems like a
Look,
guy that was
is he
just
a smart football guy? Yeah, he's probably a smart football guy. But sometimes when you like, what did Detroit need a shot in the arm? Wouldn't you like the trend is to get the upcoming coordinator who can get your offense moving? Because to me, there's a lot more really good defensive coordinators in football than there are offensive minds. If I'm a head, or excuse me, head of a franchise, an owner, a GM, I'm trying to get the next best thing for my offense to get in there, especially when I have Matt Stafford at quarterback and you put some interesting pieces around them and run a legitimate offense. I'm not looking for a defensive guy. Like Jim Caldwell was a defensive guy, if I'm not mistaken. You fired him; he did a fine job, and you upgraded to Matt Patricia. An interesting one. I know we're gonna have a lot of hot takes week one, but that's all we can go off of, right? They look terrible.
Billy Oliveris. That's harsh, big man. He was an amazing coordinator. That's right. He was an amazing coordinator. Nothing
Yeah,
to
but
say he
was
should
he
be a
even
head
really the
coach.
coordinator? Do you get credit for being Bill Belichick is the defensive mastermind? You're telling me that he was coordinating. I mean, look, Bill Belichick's going to put his guys in the best spotlight out there, but Bill Belichick's one of the best defensive coordinators of all time. You don't think he was in Patricia's ear? You think he just set Patricia off like, "Hey, do your thing, man. We got this." No, no. That's why everybody fails outside of Belichick because you don't have that game planning during the week. He can't call up Belichick. Hey, Bill, come sit into this meeting with me. How are we going to defend this wildcat or run pass option here? You don't have that anymore.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you're looking at. He's a coordinator, and was he even really that great of a coordinator? Had a lot to do. And look, not for nothing. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's not like New England's ever been looked at as like an elite defense. They got fucking crushed in the
Back in
Super
the
Bowl.
day, they were. Back when
Yeah,
the
I mean
NFL, I
back.
mean, they
Yeah,
did before the rules changed. You remember, Jeff, where they used to play the Indianapolis Colts and say, let's fist
how many
fight
years ago was
Reggie
that
Wayne and
though?
Marvin Harrison. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, wait, like when he took when he take the job, 2000, those early 2000 teams were unbelievable in defense, but a lot of the rules change and it's guided more towards passing now. But he's a great defensive mind. But you're right. Look in the past, look at like a couple of Super Bowls even. I mean, they had some good defensive performance at the Giants, but twice they faced the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Was a lot of points. They faced the Carolina Panthers in the Super Bowl. There was a ton of points. So yeah, no, it's just a trend of the league. But back in the day, he would lock down because he could get physical and cheat the rules on you.
Yeah, he doesn't impress me too much. I don't like the guy. Also, the Jets say defense knew Stafford signals in route. I mean, that doesn't surprise me. Just an overall ugly performance by the Detroit Lions. Just like I think the only people that are trying to justify Matt Patricia are Billy Oliveris, and Billy's probably a big time Lion fan, so he tries to paper over the cracks and say it's not really that bad. Yeah, it really is. The Lions look awful.
No, you're right about it. I mean, there's not really too much more to say in that football game. But if we get to over to Darnold, I can't script a better thing for a young quarterback. It's almost like Jeff. You know how like you try to trip your quarterback up. He's a young quarterback up. You give him a little bit too much information on purpose to see how he can handle it, or you put him in spots that you don't think he can handle in practice and see how he overcomes adversity as a quarterback, or does he fold? Let this look. It's only again hot takes are out there. It's only one game, and I understand it. But if you are a Jet fan, if you're a Jet head football coach or in the franchise, that game couldn't have started any better to find out what Sam Darnold is as a young quarterback. And to all those people out there, Jeff, that say this, you can't just put a starting quarterback out there. He's got to learn. Like, you can't just put him out there. What happens if it goes wrong and he crumbles? True football players, grinders, and champions shake things off and keep it moving. A pick six as your first play in the NFL. He could have wilted, went south, but he's like, dude, it's 1 minute into the game. We're down 7-0 and plays well the rest of the game. That's the sign of a player you want on your side. Kudos to the Jets, where all those scared franchises out there went with these bum-ass veteran quarterbacks over their young rookies that they drafted high. Kudos to the Jets for throwing him out there, because I didn't think he was going to win the game last night, and I wasn't putting any money on the Jets because I don't know what I'm getting out of Darnold in his first start. Was he the greatest thing out there? No, but he was a competent quarterback after that interception, made the correct throws out there. What did he finish, 18 or 21? Something ridiculous outside. So basically had two completions after the interception. Kudos to the Jets for looking at your future and saying, let's get it started now, not hide behind some bum quarterbacks like Cleveland is doing, like the Arizona Cardinals are doing, and the Buffalo Bills are doing. Good move, Jets.
Yeah, but settle down. I mean, it's Detroit, but I agree. I'm glad they threw him out there. You looked pretty good after the interception. Uh, Billy Oliveris, Todd Bowles didn't count the first season either with the Jets. Listen, Todd Bowles is a hack. Todd
Yeah, I don't
Bowles
like
is
Todd Bowles as the head
21.
coach. I don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, what? So okay, because Todd, so you want him to be like Todd Bowles? Todd Bowles has never made the playoffs, and he's 21 and 28 as a head coach. I mean, he's only had two winning seasons out of four. So I mean, I don't
But
know.
a lot of the
It's
times also, like you're really only as good as your quarterback. So I mean, you're going to be attached to the hip. So if you can get that coordinator to keep it moving there, the quarterbacks save a lot of jobs in the NFL. If you have a bad quarterback, you're not going to be a head coach for very long because you can't cover up those mistakes. And it's nice when you get on the ground floor. We'll see. Again, it's one game. I love hot takes are the best after week one because you only see week one, and that's what you have to go forward. There's going to be a lot of adjustments. There's going to be a lot of tape on Darnold, what he likes, what he doesn't like out there to do. So we'll see how it goes because the Jets end up 3-13. I still think it's a successful season as long as Darnold shows he can make the throws and be a competent quarterback.
so here's to you, Arizona. Go out and start Josh Rosen next week.
Yes. Why?
Uh,
Why? What are we messing around for anymore? Correct.
uh, Jet or let's move on to the Raiders. Raiders looked pretty good in the first. I don't know, first half. I guess we could say. Um, Bowles kind of looks like Bunny Colvin from The Wire. No, he definitely does. I've said that
He
before.
does. Yes, he does.
He looks
Yeah.
exactly like him. They're actually twins. Um, and if you don't know who he's talking about, if anyone watches Ballers, it's what's the kid's name?
It's his dad.
Ricky
Yeah.
Jarrett's
The wide receiver's dad. Yeah, his dad.
Ricky
Yeah. Yeah.
Ricky
Yep.
Jarrett's father. That's who we're talking about. He's in a lot of stuff. Robert Wisdom. He was in a couple different things. But he was in The Wire. And yes, Todd Bowles looks exactly like. That's a good call, Steve. But yeah, Raiders fade Donnie. Yeah, they looked pretty good in the first half. They're hanging around, and then the avalanche came. Um, I mean, what do you say about this? I mean, it was, I guess, a decent game for them, but Carr was. I mean, we talked about it, a couple different times on this show already. Carr was just made too many mistakes. I mean, weird decisions.
No, you're right about it. I mean, when you it's and didn't it all start, Jeff, with that bad fade ball that got intercepted in the end zone to start sort of that avalanche downfall. And the Raiders win the game continuously. And they fought hard. You're up 13-10 at the half. You got to win that football game at home, even though we know they weren't the most talented team. Public was all over the Rams, and I would have been all over the Rams. Same thing, I would have probably bet Detroit there. I would have been a public side in both of those games. But the Rams showed up and said, we have the better talent out here. And what's going to be interesting going forward, Jeff, with the Rams, we know that defensive line is going to be tough. They have position players all over the field. But those two cornerbacks are really good for the Rams. Showed out pretty well last night. The only thing that was available was over the middle. A lot of teams working tight ends, I guess, on the Rams for the rest of the year, working over the middle as opposed to outside the numbers. But good teams show up when they need to make plays, and playmakers make plays, Jeff. Peters with the pick six to seal the game. It's what good players do.
Yeah, Peters with he killed me in that fantasy game. Yeah, I was just hoping he'd like trip or something and fall down, but yeah, I've never been a big Carr fan. I lit him up on Twitter over that. Um, yeah, I mean Cook was very good. Jared Cook, Donnie's a great tight end. He's one of those big bruising tight ends. I mean, he's tough to tackle. He was about the only
Mm-hmm.
guiding light for the Raiders last night. He's a good player, Jared Cook. But an uneventful night, Donnie. Overall, I mean, two games that weren't particularly good. You know, ratings were probably down. I think a lot of people switched off, Donnie. Neither game was very enjoyable, I thought.
Yeah, you weren't going to get a high-rated second game regardless of what the matchup was. Kickoff was around 10:30 Eastern time, so imagine how many people outside of the diehards on the East Coast who wanted to watch that football game were watching. But the West Coast had it, and that's why they put the two West Coast teams out late. They can have their own party and get their football season started. But no, not the best. But we'll watch football early on, even if it's bad football. Again, because everybody's interested in their own team. We can all make the playoffs week one, and then it quickly sours after week one. Because if you're a Detroit fan, what are you looking forward to? I mean, I know they have New England on deck coming up. Who do they even have this week? On the road against San Francisco. It could get really ugly really fast for Detroit, especially if Stafford's hobbled.
Trying to think, what did I watch last night? I watched something. I forget what it was. I guess it really wasn't that great because I don't remember what it was. Let's look at week two lines, Donnie. We kind of take a quick look here on Tuesday. Obviously, tomorrow we'll be on the round table, so make sure you check that out. Eric Sweet, that guy have a Rams future at 19-1. Nice start. You're on your way with that one. They get their first win of the season. But Donnie, week two lines. What are you taking a look at early here?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, a couple of interesting ones that pop up off the board, and I do like to have week two and see what it's about. 287, 288. The Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. Jeff, quick opening line. You got some 3.5s out there. Quickly dropped to a 3 on Sunday Night Football. Falcons at 5.5 currently over the Panthers in a big week two tilt. Ravens pick them on Thursday night, which should be a good game. Both those teams won. Somebody can take maybe a little bit of control of that division. The Steelers got a tie, so somebody's going to jump out to a 2-0 lead in that division early. Then you have the Patriots, probably in the game of the week if most people are looking forward to it. Jacksonville Jaguars, the Patriots -2 versus the Jaguars. We also saw the Jaguars versus the Giants there. Without Leonard Fournette, every time Blake Bortles drops back to pass to me, Jeff, don't you just hold your breath that it's not going to be an interception or some disastrous play? Not a good way to look when you're going into play the New England Patriots, even though the Jacksonville Jaguars went last year and punched the Patriots in the mouth, but didn't have to enough to overcome it in Foxborough. Now you get that role reversal down in Jacksonville in the heat, which again, sometimes when those Patriots go down in South Florida, Jeff, in the heat, which I know it's not South Florida, but still Florida in the month of September, it'll be hot. Don't fare too well down there.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I think one that I'm looking at. I like the Ravens Thursday night against the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals are a good team. That they have some speed with Ross but I think we can all agree. I mean, I think the Ravens are going to be much improved this year. You look at Dalton. I mean, I don't love backing him. I think this defense of the Ravens is obviously good. And I know they played the Bills and it was rainy and that kind of thing, but they're always very good. I don't know. It's just kind of a feel for me. I have a feeling like Dalton's going to struggle against that real good defense. It is at home for them, so that's obviously good. And they played pretty well against them in Cincinnati over the years. But I don't know. Pick them. I kind of like the Ravens. I think this is a game where they kind of seize the opportunity and go 2-0 in the first two games.
Yeah, on the Thursday night football games, I've never bet a road team on a Thursday night game, and I won't start doing it this year. But I mean, if you're going to look towards a road team, wouldn't it be early in the season on a Thursday where you're technically still fresh coming out of camp? I know you both played last week, but it's not a long plane ride, Jeff, Baltimore to Cincinnati. You're not going to get a lot of practice time. Thursday night games usually bad because NFL teams need time to recuperate, put their game plan in, and get their feeling back. Because I mean, you talk to any football player, it's hard to get out of bed on Monday and Tuesday morning. Then you're going to be playing a football game already so quickly on Thursday night. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, these two teams pretty physical in their brand of football and style. So we'll see some head knocking plays on Thursday night. But it's interesting. It's a pick 'em out there. I like the way Cincinnati looked, but to me, a little bit more. I think Cincinnati was more gifted that win over Indianapolis than they went out there and took it. Some nice plays that they made, some key times and turnovers that were taking place in that game. And also, hey, remember all the times, Jeff, where people yell at the quarterback, don't tackle an interception return because it's not worth it on the season. You might get hurt. Andy Dalton might have saved a win by saving that pick six to start out the game in the first minute of that game. Cincinnati versus Indianapolis should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Early on the schedule, say like, who wants to watch Cincinnati, Baltimore? But both these teams fared pretty well week one. But again, stick to the old adage. I don't bet road teams on Thursday night. It's a good way to lose money.
Carolina's covered 9 of 13 as a dog. They're getting 5.5 at Atlanta. Atlanta, look, I mean, good offense, but they can't score touchdowns. I mean, that's all. It's not just been an isolated 1 or 2 game problem. I mean, that was the problem they had all year last year. Carolina looked pretty good in week one. More on the defensive end. I thought offensively they were a bit bogged down. They should have won by a little bit more, but you know what? They did enough to get the job done. They're gonna have to be more, more on, on their game this game. But you look at this one. I mean, what do you have on a total here? 44. I mean, you have to figure this game is a lot more similar to the game on Thursday against the Eagles for the Falcons. I mean, two pretty decent defensive teams. Falcons obviously struggle in the red zone. I mean, Atlanta wasn't, a top offense, or Carolina was in the top offense in week one. Maybe that translates to the next game here. You see another low score, but Carolina getting 5.5 looks decent.
Yeah, it's one of those games, though. I mean, it's put up or shut up in the NFL. If you go until you're not making the playoffs, and there's a lot of playoff aspirations out there for the Atlanta Falcons. The thing you have to like if you're going to bet the Atlanta Falcons is the Carolina Panthers won week one. You know what I mean? So there's not that enormous amount of pressure for them to win. Also, if they came in both 0 and 1, it's a do or die situation. One of these teams is already going home and not making the playoffs after week two. That would be amazing. So I'm looking at Atlanta now because if you look on deck for Atlanta, Jeff, New Orleans is the following week behind that. You have to win this football game. They're not must wins early on, but theoretically throughout time, Jeff, if you go 0 and 2, 90% of those teams that go 0 and 2 miss the playoffs. And I can't imagine with extra time to rest being at home in this football game, Olsen out as a main component for Carolina and your recent dominance over the Carolina Panthers, and you have them at home, which I believe they've won 3 straight games down in the Dome. I know it was the old Georgia Dome, but they won last year as well, and by some comfortable margins. They just have to win by a touchdown at home. I think they're in a great spot, in almost a must-win spot down in the Dome to win by a touchdown. I think they get it done, not so much because Atlanta's the end-all, be-all, Jeff. Just a little bit worried about that Carolina offense now. New coordinator coming in, banged up, bad offensive line. Atlanta's built for speed to rush the passer on turf. They'll have that advantage. They'll have the home crowd advantage there also. And you have the extra couple days to prepare and get ready for it, Jeff, in a must-win almost game for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, a lot of interesting lines here. Obviously, very early, but it's always good to look forward to things. Donnie, I'm going to stroke my own ego here. How about Russ
Yeah.
Woodside's comment? Big man,
What's he got?
I've never listened to anyone that is as knowledgeable in sports as you. It doesn't
Hmm.
seem to matter what sport it is. I have no idea how you remember everything. Well, Russ, I thank you for that. And Russ, it's a combination of just brawn and memory and just being great. I mean that's kind of what it's all about, Russ. Teddy B comes in and tries to, shoot it down like always, the clown that he is. Teddy, why don't you just take your ball and run the fuck away? I mean, that'd be nice. Why don't you just get your ball, say, you know what? I guess I'm not really too liked here. I'm gonna run home. Like, run away, bro. I mean, you're obviously trying to make your mark. We get it. You're trying to be a big time,
Yep, he
video
won,
guy.
Jeff.
See,
Your comment. Yep, you
yeah.
commented again. Teddy won. Teddy B won.
Well,
Jeff
that's what Teddy
0
B
again in
does.
the
He
chat
hopes
box.
he hopes to get his name out there through one little comment. Yeah, that's his goal. He's so starved to be on the air, even though he can't do it. He's so starved to be on the air that he'll literally do anything for it. Um, Eric, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, Matt. Israel Williams, nice insight. Donnie, yeah, Donnie's NFL insight always great. Wow, Dan Kelly, BMOC, best mind in college hoops since Billy Packer. That that's
Onions,
company.
baby.
I, I I like it. That's great. Thank you, man. But Donnie, let's get into by the way, Donnie, Patriots Jags. What are
Yeah,
your thoughts on
yeah. You know what, Jeff? Like I like the Jacksonville Jaguars because I'm old school. I like a team that can really shut you down on defense. But when it comes down to it, when you look at this football game again, and look, all athletes are. I love athletes, Jeff. They all think they can always play. One of the worst injuries you can have to an explosive player is a hamstring twinge. And sometimes NFL players who aren't used to getting their hamstring pulled think it's no big deal, and it turns out to be a 2, 3, even 4 week struggle. Leonard Fournette got injured last week on his hamstring, and of course, during the game, he's saying I'll be fine for next week. But he wasn't able to continue or finish the game throughout the first half. If you watch the Leonard Fournette less Jaguars in that game against a very pedestrian Giants defense, it didn't look that good. And you're going to have to score against Bill Belichick and Tom Brady in order to have a chance. You don't want to be square and just say, hey, look, Brady in the bell, I'm just going to ride Brady. But you're asking Brady just to win the game by a field goal. Do I know they struggle a little bit sometimes when they go down to Florida? Yes. But one would think they're going to have something for the Jacksonville defense, and you don't have to outscore Jacksonville. You don't have to get into a track meet shootout where New England's going to have to put up 35 points on Jacksonville. Might be a little bit more of a stagnant game, but doesn't Bill Belichick always put his teams through this? Brady's going to hit the open receiver and keep the ball moving. Bortles going to get put in some bad spots out there and throw some interceptions. You hate to be square at early looks at these games, Jeff, but I kind of like the Patriots here, man.
Yeah, I do too. Good call by you. Did you guys discuss Serena Williams at all? Just curious. Yes, we talked about that yesterday for the first 10 minutes of the show. Feel free to take a look at that, Hal. You'll sure enjoy it. Um, what else do we have here? What else do you have here? Andre Smith, what's up? How you doing, man? Welcome in.
Offensive lineman. There you
Um,
go. Welcome. NFL players all over in here.
yeah. Mikey D, smell Loshak's pits if you want onion. Settle down, Mike. Um, I don't know where
I'm
where
sure,
this stuff
I'm sure it's
comes
probably
from.
the
I
case
never.
for most people.
Shout out to Giorgio. Check out his father's pizzeria, downtown
Hmm.
Indianapolis. Giorgio's Pizza. How about that? If I ever go to Indianapolis, I'm definitely going to that place.
You'll rate his
Sounds
pizza,
definitely
Jeff? You'll go live on the air and rate his pizza?
yes, one bite. Everybody knows the rules. Yeah, it's just one bite. Yes, I definitely will. Uh, Troy V. Tiger Talk. For what? He finished sixth.
Go for
What do we?
18. That's all right. That's fine.
Yeah,
No big deal.
what are we talking? What are we talking about Tiger for? What's up, Corey Jean? Welcome in. Does EPL resume this weekend? Yes. People are strange with these
EPL.
comments. Can be, yeah. I mean, I guess Mike is just trying to be, I don't know, have some fun, I guess. Let's get into college football, Donnie. Week 3 coming up. Donnie, before we know it, it'll be week 10. It's already week
Yeah,
3.
no, it goes. Yeah,
Wasn't
we'll
just
be we'll
week
be trying
1.
to find. We'll be trying to find like morsels, Jeff, on the Army Navy game as usual in mid December. It's the only football game on.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, it was just week 0. Remember, we were in Vegas for the International Football Betting Conference. Now it's already week 3. It seems like forever ago already. Um, Donnie, why don't we do some? Why don't you fire off some games and let me see what we're hitting at?
Yeah, we got just picked a couple out there. We're not going we have a million football shows during the week, but we like to get a look at some of those lines that might be a little bit eye raising there, Jeff. I know SMU near and dear to your heart on offense, now getting 35 and a half on the road. And I got to say something. That's a lot of points. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the half point on the 35, and you got to beat them damn near by 40 points. But just watching, I mean, TCU does have a good defense. There was a little bit of rain elements, but what happened? Like you could always bank on in the past, Jeff, in an SMU football game, their defense always is trash, but their offense is trash, but they get like 15 or 16 possessions and go 100 miles an hour typically and can punch in some touchdowns where you're down 3 or 4 scores at times. That offense for the first 2 weeks of the season North Texas put the clamps down on them for damn near 3 full quarters. And then you saw what TCU did after what a play that was a bounce around in the rain, and they were able to bust a long touchdown run, and they get a safety and field goals or whatever. That SMU offense is atrocious down there. But looking at Notre Dame, do they have enough action and
Hey,
ammo to
Donnie,
post a 40-point win? Yeah.
they played Michigan, SMU.
Is it? It was
Yeah, I
Notre
think
Dame
your
one year.
Vanderbilt plays Notre Dame. I think
Oh, my bad, my
checked.
bad. Yes, but actually,
It's
it's
all
the
good.
same MO then on that. Yeah, same
Yeah,
MO.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be much different either way. I think you hit it on the head. I mean, great breakdown by
Yeah,
you. I mean,
okay.
SMU SMU was ugly on offense. I mean, other than one drive against TCU, where I feel like they really just used the that instant excitement you have in a game, and they were able to score. But other than that, I mean, they have been wretched with the football. I mean, just can't move the ball. And you saw what happens against TCU. What's going to happen here against Michigan? I mean, Michigan's a team that obviously one of the better defensive teams in the country. Problem I have here is I mean, this is 7 touchdowns, Donnie. You're really going to need like a 49-3, 49-7. You're going to need a type of game like that, as you know. Last week it's 23 and a half. It's a little bit more manageable. Um, but Michigan shouldn't have any trouble scoring. I mean, if they kind of approach this game like they did last week with kind of letting Shea Patterson do his thing, Michigan has done a nice job the last few years, Donnie, of taking care of weak opponents. They did it 2 years ago, did it last year. I mean, remember the Rutgers Michigan game, 78 nothing. I mean, this team has no problem putting points on the board. And if you're Michigan, you have to feel a little irritated. You're probably going to do whatever you can to, style point at this point, try to, win 55 nothing. That stuff matters. For me, yeah, SMU, I would be surprised if they score more than 10 points. If that happens, you're going to need Michigan to score in the high 40s. I think the numbers will work here. I try to get under the 35 if I can, but yeah, I mean, you have to figure it's going to be very difficult for Michigan, for SMU to score against Michigan. Sonny
It's funny.
Dykes
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
pretty low.
Like they're a really bad football team. And in college, I was on a bad football team for most of the time, but I was a wide receiver. So I loved the fourth quarter, Jeff. If we were down 31-17, 31-14, 31-21 in the fourth quarter, I knew passes were coming my way. You watch the SMU kids out there, Jeff, and especially quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs. You always want to put up stats because touchdowns look cool. Like, hey, I scored 6 times last year. It doesn't matter when it came because it's still in your stat line that you scored. The fourth quarter for SMU, Jeff, running the play clock down to one, doing their little muddle huddle, but getting the signals from the other side of the field and, snapping the ball with 5 seconds left. Usually, even bad football teams get excited down 28 in the fourth quarter because they can pad their stats. They wanted no part of padding stats and just wanted to run the clock out and get out of there. Sometimes that might factor into a total, even if you're looking at the over-under, because this isn't the SMU I remember that was slinging it all over the field to Cortland Sutton. It didn't matter what time of the game it was.
Yeah, it was an irritating one. I mean, I basically needed a touchdown with 7 minutes to go. Uh, you know, I thought the one drive they were kind of moving the ball down the field a little bit, but yeah, they're an ugly
Yeah,
offense,
what
man. They're
five?
going to
They
struggle
got
here.
the SMU got the ball. What, Jeff? 5 minutes to go, and all they had to do was dink and dunk. TCU wasn't putting that much pressure on them, and a quarterback can't make simple 5 yard out throws or throw a lob over them. It was like that's what's alarming when you're trying to bet bad football teams because if you have a decent quarterback and a decent offense, they're going to score points by default in college. But if it looks like you can't just make the common pitch and catch, that's an issue, man. And going on the road now. Is it one of those games, Jeff, where new coach preserves his team saying, I know we're going to get rocked. Let's just try to get in and out of here. Do you remember like when Kent State would go on the road and play Alabama and just say, you know what, we're going to hand the football off even on 3rd and 20 in the first quarter because we don't want any smoke and we just want to make it out alive. I have a feeling that might be taking place as well here.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you on that. This is going to be an ugly, weird game.
Dom Ricci, 60 to 80 mile an hour winds. We'll get to that in just a few moments. But another game, Jeff. How about last week? I know you're high on Buffalo, and rightfully so. What a nice win by Buffalo. Back-to-back weeks and to go on the road in Philly. Temple's not the end-all be-all. Temple's not even as good as what they were a couple years ago under Matt Rule, but still a nice winner where I believe they were even down and had a nice fourth quarter comeback in that game. -5, but hey, you say Eastern Michigan. Who are they? They pick up a Power 5 last week. Just an interesting MAC option, Jeff, early in the season here with a line of 5.
Yeah, again, I like Buffalo at home. I didn't necessarily like them on the road, but kudos to them for going on the road. It might be a new leaf for Leopold's crew. They went on the road and beat Temple. It's a big time win. Public likes Buffalo here, lined open 3. It's all the way up to 5. Eastern Michigan, Donnie. I mean, you look at a team that's been under the radar against the number. Look at Eastern Michigan. I mean, you look at the last 3 years under Creighton, 20-7 against the number. They've covered 14 of 17, Donnie, as a dog, and 12 of 14 on the road. This team is terrific against the number. Um, I'm going to see if this line goes up a bit more. I feel like I get a point or two more. I like what I've seen out of EMU. Obviously, a big win against the Purdue Boilermakers. I mean, anytime you can go in and beat them, a team that, I think, like, let's be honest. I mean, Moore is a terrific player. They have obviously the Big Ten chops. That's a big time win, a low scoring win. Eastern Michigan playing some defense. They still have Shaq Van at running back, Donnie, your boy, Ian
Mhm.
Erickson as
Yeah, yeah.
well.
Yep.
Tyler
Yeah. The
Wiegers
Vikings.
was Tyler Wiegers was terrific. I mean, 20 for 28, 312 yards. They kept Purdue in check for the most part. Purdue had a ton of yards on the ground, but didn't matter because they couldn't get good enough quarterback play. I'm gonna hope that I can maybe get 6, maybe 7. I'm gonna look towards EMU here. They've just been too good as an underdog for me to pass that up.
Hey, Jeff, real quick on this one. I know this one isn't a game I posted up here, and we'll get through these quickly. But I just wanted your thoughts on this game. We all see Florida State out there. Something is drastically wrong in the Willie Taggart era, transitioning over to a new offense, new regime there. But you're going to have two teams that, on paper, like to go 100 miles an hour in Florida State Syracuse. Now, just because you go 100 miles an hour each side of the ball, you have to play good football and still move the football. It doesn't really equate to points, but you are going to get extra possession, so to speak. You're going to be in a controlled environment because the game is at Syracuse in the Dome. But that number now creeping up from 65 to 66 to 67. Now some 68s on the board, Jeff. Betting Florida State right now. Sanford hung around with them. They looked atrocious opening night versus Virginia Tech. Now you're getting a not so good defense on the board, but is that just going to equate to points for Florida State?
Yeah, I mean, this is a scary game for Florida State because
Yeah.
you have to ask yourself. I think not only are teams going to be affected by weather on the field, but you look at how this affects travel plans. I mean,
Well, there's no,
you
no,
may
it's in
have
the Dome, though, so there won't be any
no,
effect
no.
on
I'm
that, but maybe. Yeah.
hear me out for a second. You
Go
might have
ahead.
to leave a day earlier or something like that. Is what I'm kind of
Us?
getting
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
It's obviously not going to affect the game, but it could affect where you have to leave a day earlier. It might throw off that kind of stuff as well. And for a team right now that's pretty, let's say, they're kind of, you don't want to mess with them right now. They're just kind of not in. They're kind of all over the place at Florida State. There's just a lot of things, and this is a tough game. It's always tough to go up to Syracuse and play well.
And they're favored,
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, points look to be on the menu here. But again, I mean, the problem with points when you're laying them in Florida State games is, I mean, are you confident they can score points? I mean, it seems like their offense at times just looks brutal. Um, I'm seeing, Donnie, you can get 65.5 in this total. I think you're looking at maybe just one book. 65.5 at Bookmaker and Bet Online right now. Bookmaker's at minus 110, 65.5. So, if you want to get that, the number's going to probably move. Yeah, I mean, this looks like a high scoring game.
Yeah, Chris sitting at 68. Another interesting one, Jeff. Florida minus 20.5 with Colorado State. Florida was absolutely atrocious in their last game. And an interesting turnabout, Jeff, an SEC win for Colorado State last week. I remember looking at the score in that game going, look at Colorado State, just terrible again. Arkansas just having their way. And before you could blink, Colorado State won that football game outright. Now heads back down, one of those like, hey, McElwain's, I used to coach here, but obviously Dan Mullins is in here. They probably scheduled that hoping McElwain was still going to be the head football coach, but they got to cover 3 touchdowns in this one. And Colorado State maybe woke up from their malaise to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not running to the window to bet on Florida right now. I mean, the quarterback play is a continued problem for them. You were kind of excited this year because you have a new coach and you always have a pretty good defense. But the problem for Florida has always been the quarterback play. If you get good quarterback play, yeah, I think you'd have a good team, but you haven't gotten that, and that's an issue. Now you got to cover 3 touchdowns against an offense that's pretty decent. I mean, Colorado State is starting to look up. Obviously, a big win against another Power Five team over the weekend against the Arkansas Razorbacks. I don't know. KJ Carter Samuels starting to kind of look up. I mean, he was terrific against Arkansas. This is obviously a bit tougher opponent, but this is a guy that has Pac-12 experience. He played for Washington for many years. He's seen teams like this. I, to me, it seems like way too many points for Florida right now. I'm not running to the window to bet on them. They're in another weird mental state. You're muted.
Love it when I'm always muted. Ohio State, Jeff, TCU coming in. Looks like, and is this played in Jerry World? Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm seeing the denomination up there that it's a neutral site game.
I believe it is there. Yes.
Yeah, so that's going to hurt a little bit. I would have rather seen TCU at home, but there you go. And look, TCU, good football team, Jeff. We all see Ohio State in their power. No Urban Meyer yet, but he is able to coach and get these guys prepped up during the week. Line opened up at 13, 10, depending where we're shopping at. So some big line differences there. But now it looks like it's settled somewhere around 12.5 across the board. Ohio State technically going on the road. I mean, they're still going down to Dallas. I would assume it's in Jerry World. So it will be a little bit more of a TCU home field advantage feel, but not actually at their home field.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where I'm not going to speak too early on it. I'm definitely going to want to look into it a little bit more. But look, I like TCU. I like their defense. It's always good under under Patterson. I think offensively they're really going to do well this year. Sean Robinson's a good quarterback. I know he didn't necessarily show it against SMU at times, but he's a good dual threat quarterback. He will give you a problem. But I mean, anything under 2 touchdowns, it's hard to not bet on Ohio State. I mean, they're a freight train generally. They're kind of like the Patriots. They're not a team I really want to bet against generally. Um, you know, I feel like they humble TCU here a little bit. Also, I mean, they've they just seem to cover numbers by wide margins, seemingly always. I have to look more into this game, but I lean Ohio State right now.
Yeah, Jeff, we'll slide it down there. And our last topic of the day is hurricane wagering. If you think that one wager is going to look great, and then all of a sudden it pops up on Sunday that there's 25-mile-an-hour winds from remnants of this hurricane and a lot of rain in their area didn't expect. So, hurricane wagering, Jeff, the look see approach on games that might be even impacted slightly because I know a lot of people look. We don't know where this is going to end up. We don't know where the remnants are going to end up. We don't know where the outskirts are going to touch because you're looking right now at really good weather supposedly in Pittsburgh, and one would think you might get some points between Kansas City and Pittsburgh on Sunday. But what happens if that game now turns into a rainy type game situation? Now it looks it's going to hit anywhere impacting from Charleston all the way up to Hatteras coming in, early weekend start. It's one of those where if you have a game in that area in the Southeast, boy, I'm looking at that and I'm making sure that, everything's buttoned down because you're right, Jeff, because sometimes even just with preparation, when you look at teams like, let's just say when the old, hurricane pattern usually rolls through Florida, at least Miami now has an indoor practice facility where they didn't in the past. Some of these games, Jeff, where you might miss 1, 2, maybe 3 days of practice can be really impactful of just getting out there and, like letting the kids run around and run through some plays and being at a disadvantage. This is rolling right through a massive storm up through the East Coast. Better late than never. So maybe if you have a game that you like, maybe wait that out until Saturday morning or Sunday for NFL wagering.
Yeah, I mean, look, at this point, it's fairly unlikely that this is not going to happen. I mean, it seems pretty much a strong probability that South Carolina and North Carolina are going to get hit pretty hard. This is a large storm, and this is a storm that's going to sit and stall over that area. So, listen, if you're looking at games in that area, I would probably venture to say I would just avoid them. This is going to be a pretty hefty storm. A game like Boston College Wake. I mean, again, you might get it in. It might be a little early. You really want to look at the times of when this is going to hit. As far as, I mean, Thursday a.m., Thursday night. I mean, you're going to have it approaching. So you're going to have those outer bands of rain that are going to still affect the game. So yeah, that's a game I'd probably just I think we've all kind of learned. I mean, avoiding these games is probably best, especially if you don't get the right number. Sometimes you're chasing other games that could be affected. Obviously, Central Florida, North Carolina, that game's not going to happen. Old Dominion, Charlotte, that ain't going to happen. You got to look really up and down. Virginia Tech, East Carolina, that might happen. I don't know if that's. I mean, Virginia Tech's pretty far away from this. But again, we got to see how large the scope of rain is. It's a big storm. It's going to affect a lot of places. My advice would probably be look towards Rutgers, Kansas, a game like that, a game that's nowhere near this, or even BYU, Wisconsin. Sometimes just kind of worrying about these games is you're trying to get the best number and you miss out, or or something. It's going to be a mess. That's one thing we can say.
Yeah, going to plow, and you never know where it turns either. Once it hits, the coast, it's going to weaken and all, from the low pressure, whatever the heck the jargon they use. But when it turns up, does it go right, left, or just continue on that path up through Cincinnati? So it should be some interesting stuff to watch. But just that added thing where it doesn't surprise you and say, "God damn it, this team throws a lot." Now all of a sudden, I got rain all over the place. So just be wary of it. It might not even have any impact whatsoever in the game. A little bit of light rain, a little bit of light wind, maybe nothing at all. So just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Donnie, I definitely think it's definitely going to affect a lot of these. I mean, any weather. Some of these kids seem like, like in California, Donnie, when it starts raining, people drive like it's going to be the end of the world.
Or yeah,
Some of
like it's
these kids, I
45
mean,
degrees in North Florida and everybody's
yeah,
they
yeah.
cancel school for the day. Yeah.
I mean, you saw in the TCU game. I mean, it was barely raining. These guys act like it's a monsoon. They can't
Yeah,
catch anything.
it's a good point, Jeff, because especially in college kids don't handle that nearly as well as NFL players do.
No. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely watch that and keep abreast. My advice: try and focus on games that are not in this area. This is probably an avoidance, really up and down the East Coast. Everything from basically Tennessee west, I would probably deal with. But Donnie, that'll wrap it up for today. As always, appreciate you all tuning in. We always enjoy doing the show in the morning here, and thanks for listening. Make sure you check us out tomorrow morning with the roundtable. We'll be on with Drew and Ian Cameron, Donnie, and myself. We'll go over some more college football and NFL. Hope to see you then. Everyone have a great day. Bye bye.